Hey guys, James at Kartz-N-Fartz. So today, or tonight should I say, I'm getting ready to film a 38 volt install. This is a 2002 EZGO, and it's a 36 volt system. We're going to put in the Eco battery bundle kit, which is a 38 volt with voltage reducer. And so anyway, there's the cart. Customer loves his cart, just wants to go lithium, smart guy. So I'm gonna do a step-by-step instruction. You've probably seen some of my other videos. So we're gonna do a box opening and show you what all it takes to install it. So hang on for the ride, guys. So fortunately, I live very close to an Eco battery warehouse, so I'm able to pick them up individually, but I'm assuming if this is going to be shipped to you, it's going to be on a little pallet, and these are the two boxes that you're going to get with that. So obviously this is going to be your lithium battery, and as you open this up, and guys, if you hadn't tuned in to one of my videos before, I do all of this with one hand. It's not very difficult to do, but you're going to see taped up in here very nice is your 38 volt battery. So it comes with some little moisture absorbers and stuff like that, a nice plastic bag. So anyway, and I saw another guy on the internet, you'll probably know who he is. He said it comes with a knee pad, which is pretty cool. So the other box, oh, and also inside there is your registration card for your 8-year warranty. I'll pass that on to my customer. This box here is going to have my charging port, which we're going to replace this bad boy with. Take it out, and actually that one's actually already loose, but it's gonna be a nice install. So we got a charging port, and this here is my voltage converter, 30 to 45 volts. So this will knock down the 38 volts down to 12 volts. He does have underglow lights and also headlights. Comes with a bolt kit. This right here is probably your meter. Yep, LCD. That is going to be your voltage. I mean, excuse me. Your yeah, I guess it is voltage meter. So we'll have that, and this should be your charger. Yep, that's your charger. So this charger, interesting enough, Eco battery. This charger is good for anywhere from 38 up to 51 volts. It says 51 volts, but that part number A1055 will work with either one. So that is really a neat idea, guys, because this way Eco battery has to keep less inventory of a specific charger, and it's a lot higher chance for the end consumer for Eco battery to have on the shelf what they need. So this charger, once it is plugged up through the CAN connector, and we'll get that in the video where it plugs into the side of the battery, it will sense how many volts it needs to put out. It is a smart charger, and it will charge it up. So let me go ahead and get all that stuff unboxed, and then my next step that I'm going to do is take this seat off, and I'm gonna examine what kind of wires he's got going where. So for example, before I take these batteries out, I'm gonna take my test light, and I'm gonna figure out, like, I know that's a ground wire for his headlight harness, and that is the positive post. You can see that's his main positive post. I may end up putting another end on that, but we'll take a look at that. And he's got some other positive stuff going in here, so we're gonna figure out what all those wires are. We're gonna mark them, get rid of all this stuff here. Now, one cool thing about going lithium, you're not going to see any of this mess anymore, any of the corrosion on the batteries building up. But looking there, you can see where that one melted off at one time. He had to replace it with this. He's not going to have to worry about any of that at all. Take these brackets off. Sometimes they can be tight, but they will come off. And but the main deal, before I start taking the batteries, I'm going to take a photograph of this whole battery tray. And I'm also going to label these wires to make sure I get the proper voltage back to them. Now, on a 36 volt cart, if you've got two 6 volt batteries, that's a 12 volt source. If you go that positive to this negative. So I can see, and I'm gonna do a little better job than what he's got in there, but he's got two negative wires. I'm assuming one of these probably goes to his underglow lights, which is over there. And this other positive So he's got 12 volts going to his headlight harness and 12 volts going to his underglow lights. So anyway, we're going to monitor, we're going to mark all these other wires. I'm going to do some tracing to make sure they don't go to anything else. And that's about it right there. So I'm going to take that seat off. As I'm looking around here, he's got a switch right there for something. So we're going to figure out what that is. And we're going to put him up a meter up here, the eco battery meter. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and first thing, cut your tow switch, which I did from run to tow. This is a PDS cart, so it does have a run tow switch. I've got that on tow, and I'm gonna start taking all these batteries out of the way. All right, guys, as I started taking all the cables off and everything, these 3 wires here actually had this little loom around it. What this goes to is 3 wires that come off the back of your charging port, which we're going to discard. But you'll notice one of these wires, this red one with the white stripe, plugs into the back of the charging port. I think they call that a reed switch. I think it's R-E-E-D, reed. And what that reed switch does is senses a magnet when the charging port end is plugged in, it disables the system. So that wire right here has to have pack voltage, which would be 36, 38 volts, whatever it is, has to have pack voltage for the cart to run. If you forget to plug that up, this cart won't run. So I'm going to, need to do it with 2 hands. I'm gonna unplug that wire, and I'm gonna remember that that has to go to my, well, where did it go? Right there it is, to my main positive on my battery pack. So do not, as you're taking all this loose, now, some of these other wires, that went to my main positive, which was here. The other black wire that is in that loom loops around here, and it goes to the main negative, which is right here. So as I'm taking this out of the way, the batteries out of the way, just don't forget about the reed switch. We're going to come back to that. All right, guys, so we got the batteries out. One thing I did on my negative post, I had another negative wire that we need to reuse, so I just kind of zip tied it with my negative cable so I won't forget it. Here is that reed switch. I just left the connector on for now. I will shorten it up and put a ring terminal on there, but for now, I just so I remember what it is, it's got that same connector on there. And remember, it went right over there. So we've got my harness over here out of the way. And I didn't see any other wires. There was one other red wire. Let's see if we can find out where it is. It's down here somewhere. Anyway, that red wire went up to this battery meter that he has. Do not use that battery meter. It's not going to be accurate with lithium. You need to use the lithium gauge. So I've got my really cool eco battery charging port. And when you open this up, you'll see all you have to do is plug in an extension cord. So we're going to mount that in that hole. It does supply some hardware, and we'll go over the sizes as we get close to that. Now let's walk over here, and we can actually see the eco battery itself. It will have a tag with a serial number on there to register your warranty. On the side here, it's going to have an on-off button, and that button will illuminate. We'll show you that a little later in the video, and also a place to hook up your DIN cable. I call it a DIN cable. It's like a 6 or 5 prong cable that will go to the front for your battery meter. When you take the battery out of the case, so it has another pad in the bottom of the box. It's going to have these little protectors here that are in the threads for your battery. As long as you leave this battery off, there's no voltage here, so I'm not going to cut it on until I'm ready and I double check everything. Once you take your protective coating off there, don't let this fall. It does have a plastic bag that it's wrapped in. You saw that earlier. Don't let these fall beside and lose these. These are your terminal covers, and those are the bolts with the lock washers and flat washers for your battery cables. You're also going to have some hardware, and that's going to bolt. We're going to have to actually drill into the battery tray, and this one may look bad on the video, but it's really pretty thick. So we're going to take a side cutter, and we're going to have to cut that off. The reason for that battery is going to fit up right up against here, and that's going to be in the way. So it's gonna take a little bit of modification on this battery tray. And by the way, if you don't like your battery tray, EZGO does sell one, and they're pretty reasonably priced to fit right in there. Here's your charger that I've taken out of the box. And if you bought EZGO battery, if you're a dealer, you get used to some recyclable cardboard. Everything's wrapped up in cardboard. But the battery charger will come with its own hardware with self-tapping screws. I always like to drill a pilot hole before I use them, but anyway, we'll get to that point. When I mount the battery charger, it's gonna have this little protective coating, and if I can do this with one hand, it will peel off. So I generally peel that off. I guess that's part of the, when they assemble it. I don't want to take a chance on it getting hot and wet. Anyway, I'll peel that off with two hands, get rid of that before I mount it down. This is your voltage reducer. So we're going to mount this, and this is going to knock it down between 30 and 45 volts, all the way down to 13.5. 13.5 is plenty. That's usually what most cars run at, and that will operate any headlight, any kind of what they call 12 volt accessories under 13.5 volts. That is fine. It does come with its own harness. This harness is the same size for every golf cart. So you may have to shorten up some of these wires, and as we install it, figure out where we're gonna put it, we'll work that out. And here's that connector I was telling you about. So there's the DIN connector. I guess it's a 5-pin. It's gonna plug into the side of the battery. The other end, let's see, those are CAN connection cables. We're gonna talk about those as we get into the video, but there's also some other, there they are right there. There's little small white connectors. I think one's a 8, there it is, and the other one's a 4 hiding in there. There it is. That's gonna plug to the back of your gauge. And this is your gauge. We're gonna drill a hole, and I'll tell you about what size it is, and we're gonna mount that in the dash with this hardware here with these 7mm bolts. So nothing fancy, but that's your unboxing, that's your battery. So my next step is take my side grinder, and let's get rid of these tabs that was actually holding the battery supports down. But there you can see we cut the tabs off. And so I'm gonna fit it on this side. The battery's gonna fit on the front compartment, kind of like the center of the cart. The rear, I'm not gonna worry about cutting that off. But if I can see, you see it's cut straight across, and all the old pieces around there at the bottom. You see all this dust, but I'll clean that out. But that's about all the real grinding you have to do. We're going to have to do some cutting on the dash to fit the meter, but nothing, that's probably the most serious part. If you made it this far, you're well over halfway there. The biggest part is just getting the cart prepared for the battery. Another little thing to tell you about these batteries, I mentioned about the charger, how they use that same charger is smart enough to detect whether it's a 38 volt or 51 volt. Well, this 38 volt battery is the same battery they use in club cars, and I'm sure other applications. So EZGO does a good job selling you brackets if you need additional brackets depending on your battery tray. But it's the same battery, it's the same LCD gauge, it's the same step down converter or voltage reducer, which is right over there. So it makes it super, super simple to make sure if you had a problem, you'd have parts available. So, all right, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna brush that off with my little handheld broom, and I'm gonna put a little bit of paint on that exposed metal just to keep any corrosion from progressing there. This customer here said he uses it on his farm. It's no beauty queen, but you know what? It's not a bad looking cart, and that's what he wants to use it for. Hey, that's what he wants to use it for. Smart thing is he's tired of lead acid batteries. So let me go ahead and shoot some paint and sweep that off. While I'm waiting on that paint to dry there, I'm gonna go ahead and install my charging port. And something I've learned over hundreds, I say hundreds, probably hundreds of these installations, sometimes this hole is cut a little differently. So if you look at that design, it's not an exact square. Well, it's designed, that's just how the other port comes out. But what I like to do is just put a dry fit, look at my holes, make sure they're good, and I want to make sure that this plug slides in and out properly. It's going to be hard for me to do this with one hand, but if you can see where that little tab, there it is right there. So you can see how it's sliding in pretty easily. I have run across some of these to where that hole, that square may be pushing down and binding. I don't know if you can see that with the camera, binding on that tab, and this would not slide once you bolt it down. I'm okay right now. If it was, I would tell you to go ahead and just put an extra little notch down there, just so your customer is, or yourself, you're not going to rip off that little tail. So we're going to go ahead and put that on there. The hardware that it comes with are number 3 Phillips head screws and 10 millimeters. So what I like to do is put the bolt on the end of the charging port, just like that, charging port case. And then on the back side, I'm gonna put a flat washer and then that lock nut. And once it touches and is fairly snug, I'm gonna stop. You don't have to torque this crazy tight, otherwise you're gonna pull that screw through this plastic. So just need to snug it up. It's a lock nut, it will not back out. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount that in that screw. Right. Done deal. See my flat washers and my lock nuts. So we'll worry about this pigtail because that's gonna charge into your charger. That's a quick connect, and we'll get to that part. Just notice my customer has a trailer hitch back here. We are going to find a new place to keep his trailer hitch. We're actually going to mount the charger here, and I'm going to mount my voltage reducer right here. All right, guys, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to mount my charger. So I got me a Sharpie ready to go. I am going to pre-drill the 4 holes to 9/64. It takes a 5/16 self-tapping screw, but I've found that sometimes these screws, depending on how thick that metal is, sometimes these screws break, and I don't want to break any. So I'm gonna go ahead and pre-drill some holes. If yours is plastic or you think you can try it, you can try it. But anyway, it's just what I found off doing dozens of these. So I'm gonna pre-drill this. Now, one thing I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna shift it all the way forward because I find out that I can't get my driver to mount it down. There's not gonna be any reason for me to have any extra room up there. So I'm just going to center it right along the edge of there. And then I'm gonna take my Sharpie, mark my holes, pre-drill them 9/64. I've already looked underneath the cart. I'll show you my cart. Doesn't have anything underneath here. So there's no wiring harness. Always look underneath there before you do that. And where I'm going to eventually end up putting my voltage reducer is right here on this inner splash shield. So all my wires will bunch right here. Once I get my battery in place, I'll make sure they go across there and hook up to the battery on the other side. So let me go ahead and take 2 hands and my Sharpie, mark my hole, pre-drill them, and then I'm ready to mount my charger. All right, guys, that worked out pretty good with the pre-drill. I was going to show you how easy it is. There you go, pretty easy. Next, we're going to mount the voltage reducer, and I want to show you the back side. It's got a place for 4 screws, but if you look right through there, that's exactly where the harness that comes out of the unit. So you're only going to be able to get 3 in there, 1 on the bottom and 2 up top. I like to mount them right here, and so I will need 2 hands to mount that. But no matter what, there's not going to be screws long enough that could interfere with your tires. So we're going to, and they're not that heavy, so I'm going to mount that with just some Phillips head screws. Unfortunately, EZGO does not provide those for you, but those Phillips head screws will do just fine. So anyway, let's go ahead and mount that. We got that mounted. Next, I'm going to move this cable out the way. And by the way, I did not mention this earlier, but it doesn't matter which way you mount the charger. I just prefer to mount the end with the quick connect to your charging port on this end, and the other wires that come out of this end go along the back side of the battery. So it's just less cable stretched out. But like I said, it really doesn't matter. So now these are got 2 handles, so I'm gonna need both hands. These are actually not that heavy to lift up. I'm gonna put it in there, and then I'm gonna measure, and I'm gonna try to center the battery on the battery. Right, so we got the battery just kind of set down in there, and on this battery tray, you see these little holes? I didn't know if they were exactly equal, but it does have it on both sides, so I kind of just eyeballed it. I measured it spot on. So that's where the center, this battery is directly in the center of this. So I'm gonna use this little tool. It's like a little spring-loaded punch to punch where the holes need to be drilled And actually, I'm gonna need a flashlight because it's so dark in there. And if you don't have one of those, try a Sharpie. And then I'm gonna drill some holes. Now the hardware pack, where did I? All right, so I found my hardware kit. It's part number A8004. And it says 5/16 on there. I believe it does. No, it says 1/4 inch. I am going to drill the holes to 5/16. The reason I want to do that, I want to have just a little bit of slop in case I need to center that battery, or if I don't drill it exactly center, I'll have enough extra. And they come with some lock nuts and some lock washers and flat washers. I believe are in that packet somewhere. And so it'll make it easy enough where that 5/16 hole is not going to be a big problem. So once I get those marked, I'm probably just going to shift it over. You can pull it out if you wanted to. I'm probably just going to shift it over, drill the holes, then I'm going to shift it all the way this side, drill the holes, and then center it, and then we're going to bolt it down. All right, so I got my holes drilled. So now I'm going to take my hardware, and I'm going to take the bolts. I'm gonna go ahead and slide the lock washer on there. Once I slide it in the hole from up underneath, I'm gonna put a flat washer and this 7/16 lock nut. Let's see here. So pretty simple. I'm gonna end up holding it underneath with this, and on the top, I'm gonna use this little bit in my drill, and that is a 3/8. That is a 3/8 that fits that. So a 10 may do it, but anyway, 3/8 fits it really good. And as I tighten that on there, the lock nut's gonna keep the top from twisting or eventually backing out. And of course you got a lock nut on the bottom, so you got double protection. So let me go ahead and bolt the battery down. And I will tell you this, you may think that's not that important, but I've been a part or known about 3 carts, actually 4 carts that have turned over with eco batteries. They were secured properly, they did not come out. So anyway, they turned over for various reasons, but probably just dangerous. But the eco battery did stay in place and they were unharmed. So anyway, let's bolt this battery. All right, so we've got all that bolted down. So at this point, we've got our charger, voltage reducer, charging port, and the battery bolted down. So the next step I'm gonna do is we're going to remove these cup holders, and I brought 2 screwdrivers and a little door panel tool, but there's some tabs, and if you look real close, you can see that indentation. There's another one in the middle, there's another one over there. Those are 3 tabs that go under there. So I'm going to put the phone down, and I'm actually going to try to do this with 2 hands so I try not to scratch up this place. But I need to remove this cup holder because we've got to mount our gauge up here somewhere. So let's go ahead and get this out. That was easier than I thought. So what I did was I put my screwdriver right beside that tab, and I just twisted it sideways, and it actually rocked it up. And there it goes. Pull the back up, and then it comes out. So you can see someone's already put some type of switch here for something, and might be your headlight switch. So now I'm going to find a place to drill a hole for my gauge, and I can reach up underneath here and tighten the screws for it. So the socket that or the hole saw that I'm gonna use for it, I got this off Amazon, and so I don't know what kind of quality it is, but you know what? It does a good job on plastic. So this is a 2 3/64 inch or 52 millimeter. So I'm gonna find out where I wanna mount my gauge, and what I generally try to do, for me, if I mount the hole there, somebody's gonna lay their drink right there and you're not gonna be able to see the gauge. So I'm going to stagger it, probably stagger it over here and keep it somewhere in uniform with the key switch and everything else. So we're gonna mount the battery meter, which I showed you over there when I did the unboxing, and then we'll reach in, once I get the hole drilled, we'll reach in underneath here and tighten in that little U-bolt that snugs it up. So we got our hole drilled, and that's the little piece that came out of it. So I'm getting my gauge ready for install with the bracket, and these are 7 millimeter nuts. And if you look at one, you can see the back of it. If I can flip it over here. Well, don't want to All right, the back of it has these little knurls or grips, so it's kind of like a lock nut. And I just put them on as tight as my fingers will do it, because I'm gonna be reaching underneath it like this, tightening it up with a deep wall 7mm. Now, before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and take my cable out. That's the DIN plug that I was telling you about earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and attach it to my battery, leave myself, you know, not an excessive amount, but I'm gonna leave myself a little bit of room, because these two little wires hanging off right there by the DIN plug, one of these has to hook to the charger, and we'll get to that when we run the charger wires. So I want to make sure that these wires are, you know, accessible. And then the rest of the cable, I'm gonna go underneath the cart, run it up under the dashboard, then come up through the back. Now the reason I want to start here, and I'm gonna have a lot of cable. These cables will actually work on a limousine cart. So once I run that up, get it zip tied underneath the cart up here, I'm gonna coil up any extra and leave it underneath the cup holders. That's a great place to leave it. Won't get in the way, and you cannot cut it short and shorten it. You've got to coil it up. So let me go ahead and connect the DIN plug up to the side and get underneath the golf cart, which I got a lot of dirt. I'm gonna have to sweep all that up, but I'm gonna go underneath this frame and then come back up there, and I'll show you what it looks like. Right, guys, so this is how I routed it. So come right up through that hole right there, and as I get underneath the golf cart, you see where it came out. I ran it right alongside that frame rail, tightened it up with zip ties. When I came around the top, I went right up this channel, zip tied it to the light harness at the top, and I went through that oval slot. So when I did, it come out right there, if you can see it. Wrap the cable up, pulled the leads through there. So I will plug those up very gently to the back of this. I've never had one snap or anything, but they're very small plastic. I'm gonna be very gentle with it. I'm gonna snap it in. Once I get the EZGO battery gauge mounted, centered in, then I'm gonna come behind it with this little U-bolt, which comes right over here, and then tighten it down with these two 7mm. So this definitely takes two hands. The smaller hands you have, the better you're gonna have a better chance you're gonna have to get it the first time. So anyway, let me get that done. Guys, I failed to mention this. You're gonna have a lot more success getting this U-bolt behind there is when you do reach behind there, if you come in between these two wires and then try to find those two holes. I missed that one, but once you find those two holes like that, it's just be a lot better trying to pinch those wires down. So that's what I'm at. So we got the gauge mounted. So now we need to get this wiring from these components over there. So first thing I'm gonna do is take my, from your locking connector from your charger to your charging port. And that should just snap. A lot easier with two hands. There we go. Make sure it's good. I'll check that with two hands in a second. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to secure that with zip tie through these holes and keep everything over here out the way. But before I start doing my wire management, now the next thing, I need to unwrap these. And these are my charging cable that will actually go to the battery itself. And then over here for your voltage reducer, I need to plug in the harness, which is in this bag right here. And it's going to have some leads that's going to go to the battery end. And then it's also going to have the leads that go out to the 12-volt accessories, which we know are over there. We're going to clean those up a little bit. And it's also going to have a trigger wire. And we're going to try to find a source off the solenoid underneath that cover for the trigger wire. And so let's jump on that. All right, guys, so I did check that. That is plugged in tightly. I plugged in my harness for my voltage reducer. And I've made sure I plugged it in properly. I ran the wires to the other side of the battery. There's also another wire, this thin wire. Now, This is relatively new within the last year or so from EZGO battery. This is a CAN connector or CAN communication wire, and it allows the BMS inside the battery to communicate with the battery charger. So that's going to need to go over here, and this goes into, when I get over there I'll show you, it goes into one of the pigtails from your meter that goes inside there. So we've got that. Now you're going to notice that little connector, that little square connector, that is a servicing port for the charger. You'll never use that. That's only if the charger goes bad. EZGO battery needs to go in there and test it. So what I'm gonna have to do is take all these wires and figure out a way to neatly zip tie them across this battery tray and get it to the other side. Now, as I walk around here to the other side, and I've already jumped ahead of a couple little things, I've wired up my negative leads and my positive lead. Now, earlier in the video, if you remember, I had a negative lead zip tied to the negative cable. Well, that was to that old battery meter, and I tested it, and so I went ahead and disconnected those wires and just got them out of there. So the only negative lead that I'm gonna have is and I try to put the thick ones against the battery. So from going from the battery backwards, you've got the main negative, which you can tell this customer's already upgraded to some heavy duty cables. I've got the main negative against the battery. The next one is going to be my charger negative. And then I've got a negative for my voltage reducer. Now I'm going to go over here to the positive side. Again, against the battery is my main positive. Then I've got the battery charger. Then I've got the voltage reducer. And these two don't matter which one. And then I've got that red and white wire. Remember where that one went to from earlier in the video? That's right, your reed switch that went over there that we're not going to use. So I'm going to have battery pack voltage in order for this cart to run. Now there's going to be one more lead that I'm going to need to hook up, which is, and obviously I'm going to shorten this up because this thing is long. This orange wire that comes with EZGO, that is your trigger wire. It says accessory positive. On this PDS cart, I've tested leads on the back of the switch. I've tested leads on the solenoid. Anytime this PDS cart is put in neutral, I lose voltage. As soon as I flip it in forward or reverse with the key on, then I get voltage. So in this case, that voltage reducer is only going to be cut on when two things: the key has to be on and it has to be in gear. If for some reason you don't like that, what you can do is you can just hook this straight to positive and that voltage reducer will run all the time. On a series cart, there's no way around it. You have to do that. But on this PDS cart, I'm gonna go ahead and wire it up to the solenoid, and I'm gonna run it off this blue wire. I've already checked it with my voltmeter. It cuts on and stays on when the cart is in forward or reverse and the key is on and it's on run for the run switch. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that wire underneath here. And again, I can't do it with one hand anyway, but I'm gonna tidy up this wiring harness. But I wanted to show you how those wires go on there. Do not forget about that one. That one's gonna kick your tail. And also, when you get over here to the meter cable, that's one of the two that this wire here has to plug into. Now you're gonna notice one is blue and brown and one is white and black. It doesn't matter which one. They're both the exact same plug. So just choose one and plug it up. So let me go ahead and get that the wire management, get all that zip tied together and show you what it's gonna look like. And then also I'm gonna be real careful. And I'm always leaving this battery off while I'm messing around with these high voltages. So anyway, let me get that done. All right, guys, I got my wire management done. So I did zip tie this to the brake cable to keep it from bouncing around, but turned out really neat over there on that side. This side, I got a little more business going on, but it's way neater than it was before. These little covers, I got the positive side on. they just slide on over there to kind of protect the terminals in case something else is underneath here. Now, the first time you cut the battery on, you're going to notice it's going to be probably 50, 45% or somewhere between there. So I'm going to charge this overnight. I did, like I said, hook up that CAN communication cable. Otherwise, that charger will cut on, cut off, cut on, cut off. It never will charge properly. And one other housekeeping. So after I hooked up the trigger wire, that was that orange wire from my voltage reducer. Once I gave it the gas and tested it, it lost voltage, or the voltage dropped very low. So I didn't like that, so I went ahead and ran it straight to my positive lead. And there's plenty enough room underneath there, but there is that orange wire right there. So run it to the positive, you're going to be fine. By the way, the voltage reducer, the battery charger, the charging receptacle, the meter up front, all that has a 3-year warranty with EZGO battery. 0 deductible, same thing with the battery. And then it extends on to 8 years prorate. Awesome warranty on there. So now that I got everything plugged up, I need to test my charger, make sure it's charging up properly. So get a good 15 amp cord. I personally do not like the ones that light up. I've seen too many of them things melt down. So let's give it a second, see if that kicks in. It does. And on one side, I think it's this side, it does have a light that will tell you how it's charging. But also, if you look at your meter up here, look at the very bottom. 7 amps, 7.5, 8 amps. It'll build up to about 15 amps. Let's give it a second, see if it goes to max charge. Yeah, it's getting real close to it. So 14.5 amps, 14.8 amps. So that charger is running full capacity right now, and it's continuing to run. So it's going to charge the battery up. Now, when you do charge the battery has to be on. Do not think you're going to leave the battery off, because if you leave it off, it will not charge. The BMS is not communicating to the charger, and it will not charge. So it doesn't matter whether you have it on run or tow. That's going to be the same. So anyway, I kind of leave mine on tow when I'm not using it, because I've got small kids. So anyway, that's pretty much it. So I think my customer's going to be tickled to death. You can see the charging voltage a little over 40 volts, but it's gonna perform well. So tomorrow we're going to test drive it. It's late on a February night when I finish this, and these take me a little longer when I'm filming, but we're going to test it tomorrow and see how it does. So let me go get some rest and let this thing charge overnight. All right, guys, so I've got it charging overnight in the garage, and my customer's going to be here early in the morning, so I'm not going to have time to test drive it, but I know it's going to perform well. I may put it in the comments exactly what kind of speeds we ended up with this, and it's just a stock, well, it's got a lift kit on it, stock EZGO 2002 model, I believe it is, 36 volt. So anyway, please reach out to me for your eco battery needs. I also do a lot of business with Plum Quick, so I usually try to keep just about every golf cart Plum Quick motor in stock, except for Yamaha. I don't mess with Yamaha, but on the EZGO and Club Car line. So feel free to text me, call me. I do ship nationwide, so just like any other eco battery dealer. And if you don't know this, Eco Battery does a great job protecting the price and the value of their product. So it doesn't matter whether you buy from me, you buy from somebody else, you're going to pay the same. So if you could give me a little support, I'd appreciate that. Be sure to click like and subscribe on my videos. If you'll follow the channel, there's a whole lot of tips on club cars. I do more club cars than I do anything. And you know, these batteries, like I said, they're pretty much the same. These golf carts are dumb. They don't know the difference between lithium voltage and lead acid voltage. So anyway, do yourself a favor and get rid of all that maintenance that you've been chasing after. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and like I said, follow the channel, and we'll see you on the next video.